Anybody heard from Mr. Lafredo?
He just got on.
Pardon?
He just joined.
Oh, okay. There he is. Okay. Believe we have everything. The regular meeting of Windsor Heights City Council is called to order. Roll call.
Susan Skerries. Susan Skerries.
Here.
Joseph Jones.
Here.
Mike Lafredo.
Present.
Mike Jones.
Here.
And Teresa Harms.
Here.
She's here.
Where is she? I don't see her.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Susan Skerries.
Yes.
Joseph Jones.
Yes.
Mike Lafredo.
Yes.
Mike Jones.
Yes.
And Teresa Harms.
Next item is public forum. Any comments from the public on topics of business that are not addressed tonight? I guess raise your hand or go into the chat and speak up. I don't hear anybody. Travis, you see anything coming in?
I do not.
Okay, next item is presentation from JEO Consulting Group on the flood mitigation analysis. John, Dan, I don't know which one of you want to go first or who wants to lead it off, but the stage is yours.
Hey, Mayor, if I might, I'm gonna introduce them here.
Go ahead, Dalton.
So we've got John and Dan, and is it just the two of you tonight, John?
Yes.
We've got John and Dan from JEO Consulting Group joining us tonight to present how they propose that we would complete flood reduction and resiliency analysis for the city of Windsor Heights. Kind of how we got here is about 12 months ago. We had a discussion at the council about the flood risks that Windsor Heights is at serious risk of. And so we took it to the Public Works Committee, kicked it around for a little bit, and ended up doing an RFQ and then RFP process. We received five responses to our RFP. All five of the consulting firms that submitted for our RFP were, they were really good, and I don't have a doubt that any of them would be able to accomplish the work. But we did feel that JEO was by far the best consultant to do the work by mix of history of success on previous projects, experience of the project team, total comprehension of what we're trying to accomplish, and then since it's Windsor Heights, of course, the cost was a driving factor for us. So what we're going to do tonight is have JEO present how they would propose that they do the analysis and just kind of a high level overview. One of the comments that we got back from our Public Works Committee meeting with them was it was pretty technical. And so I've asked them to maybe water it down a little bit for the council. If the council is generally agreeable to the proposal that JEO has tonight, we're requesting that you direct Dennis to enter into contract negotiations with them. It doesn't need to be anything formal, so it's not like you have to take formal action on it tonight. But if you're agreeable to it, we could have a scope of services agreement in your hands for the May 3rd meeting to consider. The deliverable date on this scope of services is mid-fall, and we believe that's pretty attainable. And this is working hand in hand with the Silver Jackets Phase 2, and it's another thing that came out of our Public Works Committee meeting. This is a comprehensive study, so we're including a lot of partners in this. So I'm sure I missed some stuff there, John and Dan, but I'm going to hand it over to you. can you guys, Travis or Chad, can you allow John to share his screen, please?
It'll have to be Travis. I don't have the rights to it.
All right, John, you should be good.
I got you in there, John.
Great. Okay, well, thank you, Dalton, and everyone. I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you tonight about this project. I'm just going to start real quick with a quick overview of our team before I go into discussion of the project itself. As Dalton mentioned, Dan Fricke is on with me tonight. Dan and I both have about 18 years experience working on these types of projects and related water resources engineering projects. Our team represents a wide array of people, not all of whom are shown on this slide, but covering the disciplines of engineering and planning and specialization in certain types of flood risk reduction actions, which I'm going to talk about tonight. I did want to mention, certainly want to give you a good overview that's thorough but not too technical. If I do veer in that direction, please just throw the questions out that you need answered to clarify anything. One of the key things I want to talk about tonight is basically, what does this project look like? What are the key components? And what do you get out of it at the end of the day? So that hopefully there's a clear understanding of not only our approach, but what you're getting for the effort. As Dalton mentioned, the Silver Jackets is a group led by the Corps of Engineers, in this case, the Rock Island District, that's working on a flood study related effort within the watershed for the city of Clive. And so when we look at the task for our evaluation and the plan that we're going to put together, one of the key things that is the first thing to take care of is just coordination with that effort. And there's going to be some technical data that we can leverage for Windsor Heights, and also any recommendations that study comes up with will be collaborative with our Windsor Heights specific flood risk reduction recommendations. And overall, there are three main tasks that are being completed with the evaluation. One is assessment of what are the key things contributing to flood risk for Windsor Heights? Where is the risk? And a lot of that is based on leverage of existing flood risk information. But we're also going to look at some Windsor Heights specific flood risk related evaluations. And the other two key components are, what can we do about that flood risk? So take action with what we call structural flood risk reduction components. And those are things like dams, detention cells, levees. Non-structural, which are things like acquisitions of individual buildings, floodproofing of individual buildings, basement fill, which what structural does is it modifies the risk, it moves the water away. Non-structural modifies the impacts. So it modifies this building or the region so that when it does flood, the impacts are minimized. And then another part of mitigation action assessment is what programs could community do to reduce risk. And one of the key ones is what's called the Community Rating System, which is a program of the National Flood Insurance Program. And today, the city of Windsor Heights participates in the NFIP as a regular participant. And if you join the community rating system, you do certain things in order to get flood insurance cost reductions. And those things go beyond your standard National Flood Insurance Program participation, floodplain management effort. That's also something that you can do sort of relatively easily and quickly to get a cost reduction for flood insurance policyholders while you work on these other planning items. And the final primary thing that we're going to do is look at the costs and benefits of these potential actions. What's the pathway to implementation? What's an action plan to get you there, and basically give you a prioritized list of these actions. And the prioritization will be based on effectiveness, cost, and funding opportunities and how those match up. So at the end of the day, you'll have a plan that sort of says what we recommend for you to do going forward to implement these actions to reduce your flood risk and the consequences of flooding. And when we think about the approach to this and, you know, stakeholder coordination and some of the key elements of the plan, one of the things that we consider and was discussed in the Public Works Committee is what's the goal of the plan. And in our view, some of the key goals are on here, but this is also subject to your feedback, of course, as the primary and important stakeholder in the effort. Coordination with external stakeholders, which ranges from the Silver Jackets group that's working on this other part of the watershed to individual property owners and the public within Windsor Heights. Identifying cost-effective and feasible mitigation actions to reduce the cost of potential damages and reduce the floodplain and flood insurance costs. And, you know, one of the things that to set the framework for that and some context, this yellow line is the 1992 flood insurance rate map. And in 2019, a new one went effective, a new floodplain map. That's the blue one, the blue area. The red area is actually the flood risk area identified by the Silver Jackets project. And it's getting into the technical weeds to talk about why those are different. But our objective is to, as long as it's aligned with cost effectiveness and technical feasibility, to shrink that floodplain down. And one of the main outcomes of the plan is either can we shrink the floodplain or can we modify the risk to the structures that are at risk so that they won't be impacted. So for example, elevating a structure, whether it be by basement fill or just direct elevation, protects it from flooding, but it also at the same time reduces the flood insurance cost because it can be re-rated based on the elevated condition instead of the existing condition where it might be below the flood elevation. And overall, we want to optimize these actions for the key benefits, the key damages avoided, the potential for funding and meeting the long-term planning needs of the community. I do have a few, I'm going to go through these pretty quickly, but these are just more detail on those key tasks. Like I said, stakeholder engagement with Silver Jackets and being a voice for Windsor Heights in that process, and as well as public engagement. The technical assessment is evaluation of the flood studies. And what I'm showing here is just the depth of flooding based on that Silver Jackets evaluation. And one of our key objectives is to reduce the depth of flooding or identify ways to reduce the consequences of flooding to what does remain in the floodplain. Structural mitigation action assessment. I'm not going to go through them all, but like I said earlier, it's, you know, detention, levees, things that either move the flooding away or reduce the amount of water that comes through this area during a flood, or helps it get out of the region more quickly, such as channel improvements downstream of the park. And then non-structural mitigation action assessment is things like elevating structures, filling in basements, This is a simple example of putting in flood barriers or flood proofing, which may be applicable to some of the public or commercial structures in the park region or nearby. Flood proofing is generally not recommended for residential structures. And then, of course, the programmatic option, which is the community rating system. And this is just a real quick, and I can come back to this and talk more about it if you have questions, but this is just an example of where we've done this for another community. And the features on the map here, the yellow line and the kind of pink line are flood risk reduction, small, short levees, basically, in this case. The green dots are evaluations of individual structures and potential mitigation actions. And the blue is actually our reevaluation of the flood risk and the floodplain for this community, which was informed by recent flooding. This is a community in Nebraska, recent flooding for this community a couple years ago. So bottom line, as my last couple slides here, is how will this plan help Windsor Heights move forward in the future? What will it do for you? So there's two really key components of this and several subcomponents, as you see, but essentially we come up with conceptual projects, costs, vet those for acceptability on the range of factors that can impact them, such as technical, social, funding opportunities. How do all those things match up? Considering all those criteria, what's most effective? Like what actually reduces the floodplain or reduces the flood risk for the buildings in the floodplain? And is cost appropriate, whether that be because it's relatively low cost by itself, or because there's significant funding opportunities that can help implement those types of projects. And one other thing we look at with that is the glide path overall. Like I mentioned earlier, the community rating system as a programmatic project is easy to implement quickly, and it gets you a savings right away. Other projects are maybe you need to wait for funding opportunities in order to implement them. And still others are very big potentially, and because of cost and complexity, they take a long time to implement. And bottom line that we want to get you to is a plan that's ready to go for funding opportunities and has those that feasibility, both technical and funding feasibility identified, and also has buy-in from the community and fits into the long-range planning goals of the community as well. So with that, I'll answer any questions you may have, and I can revisit anything on there that I went through too quickly if that's applicable.
Anyone got any questions for John?
Dave, there was a consensus at the Public Works Committee to move forward with this group.
Thanks, Mike. Is that the consensus of the council to go ahead and have Dennis negotiate an agreement with them? We just heard from Mike, which was Mike Jones, myself, and Mike Lafredo on the Public Works Committee. So that was a recommendation and we move forward.
This is Teresa. I really appreciate the presentation this evening, and I think it helps give us perspective. This is long overdue, as you might imagine, but I appreciate your tactical approach, very informative presentation, but the outline that you've provided gives me a good sense of where you're headed and what we're hoping to accomplish. So I very much appreciate that. Thank you. I would support this.
Thank you, John. We'll Next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. Motion to approve.
So moved.
Second. Can I
Discussion.
just,
Go ahead.
so I was asked with the Ankeny sanitation, if there was a way to change it from Friday. The person was concerned with having their garbage / recycling out over, like if they were gone, it's just an invitation for the people to see that they're not home. I'm not exactly sure if this is anything that can even be looked at. I know that, Ankeny Sanitation has their routes pretty planned out far in advance. And, they added in our lawn waste stuff now. So just kind of wanted to bring this up because it was brought to my attention.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Susan Skiris,
Yes.
Joseph Jones,
Yes.
Mike LaFredo,
Yes.
Mike Jones,
Yes.
and Teresa Harms.
Yes.
Susan will query that, but I think you probably hit it on the deal. There's a lot of folks that really probably doesn't make any difference to. So but we can check with them. Next item is consideration of resolution 2021-17, authorizing the city to submit an application for funding from the federal member directed funding program for partial funding of 73rd Street. Motion.
Moved. Move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Susan Skiris,
Yes.
Joseph Jones,
Yes.
Mike LaFredo,
Yes.
Mike Jones,
Yes.
and Teresa Harms.
Yes.
Next item is consideration of 73rd Street pavement marking between University and Center Street. That's getting pretty light down there. Motion.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion?
So am I wrong in reading this? It was installed like we did the last project in 2019, but we didn't use this type of paint. Is that kind of what I'm reading as I read through this? And so instead of using the paint that we used, now we're going to go to the pavement or the markings that will last for up to 10 years.
Right, yep, it's called a durable marking. So they grind in a groove, put down a thermoplastic, and then it'll be a more permanent solution. I mean, nothing's permanent on the road, but it'll be a more permanent solution.
And then,
What's that mean, Dalton, more permanent?
Up to 10 years,
10 years?
yes.
Okay.
and then who will be painting the yellow curbs on the median islands then?
My staff will continue to do that.
Okay. And it looks like you don't have the equipment to do this properly. Like at one point in time, didn't we purchase line marking equipment that was kind of an expensive project, or I'm not exactly sure when that was, but I remember that in the back of my head.
Yeah, we have, it's like a go-kart with the sprayer on the front of it. It's not even, to today's standards, it's not even acceptable to use on like a parking lot. So no, we don't have the equipment to do this. Even if we didn't do the durable markings, we don't have the equipment to do it properly, no.
Okay. Thank you.
Any further questions or discussion? Roll call.
Susan Skiris,
Yes.
Joseph Jones,
Yes.
Mike LaFredo,
Yes.
Mike Jones,
Yes.
and Teresa Harms.
Yes.
Next item is 28E agreement between the city and West Des Moines Community Schools for cost sharing of the center turn lane on 73rd Street in front of Clive Learning Academy.
Move to approve.
Let me ask a question. When would that happen? Would you project that to occur?
Do you want to get a second first? Because I have questions too.
Second.
Okay. We just got it from Mike Jones.
Okay. Dalton,
24.
I believe it was when we do 73rd Street. I could be wrong. Dalton, are you in Bolton?
Yeah.
and
Plan construction year is 2024.
So that would initiate in 2024, Dalton?
Yep, and it's the same information that's on those grant applications we've been submitting. So start in 2024 and end in November of 2025. That's the soonest we have any bonding capacity available.
Okay, but so with that agreement, that cost will certainly be different in 2024 than it is today. So is that part of the agreement that it's 50-50 when the cost is determined in 2024, 25, or 26?
Yeah, if we were to build that today, the cost wouldn't be that $264,600. It'd be quite a bit less. And so we had a conversation with the school district and told them that we were going to increase the cost to account for inflation and increased construction costs over the next 3 years.
That's not my question, Dalton. Whatever the cost is in 24, 25 to get going on the plan, is West Des Moines in for half?
So they're in this agreement, puts them in up to half, or puts them in it at half up to $264,000. But there's language in there that allows us to say, hey, this came in way over bid. Do you still want us to install the extra turn lane? Because we're not going to go it alone. And they have the opportunity to say, yes, we will do that. And I'm assuming that if the costs come in significantly higher, that's going to be your direction at the time.
Okay, so they haven't agreed to go 50-50 whenever it happens. You would have to renegotiate that 2080 agreement?
No, I mean, there's language in there that says that we can work with them if it exceeds the cost estimate that we gave them.
I understand we can work with them, so, because I would anticipate that the cost will go up, as I think you probably would anticipate too. So anyway, okay, all right. That's not quite what we wanted. It's not very specific, but I'll take what you gave me.
Mr. Mayor,
no,
can I try to put some clarification on the agreement that you're considering this evening requires that the school district contribute 50% up into a cap. If the cap is exceeded because, I don't know, the bids come in high, then the school district just votes on this again. So then also Dalton has explained that we have worked in cost increases every year. We know that it's a few years off and we have worked that and taken it into account. So we don't think that it's going to go over, but if it does, then the school board just gets a second chance to say, yes, they still want to participate.
Okay, so it's going to be time sensitive.
no further discussion. Roll call.
Susan Skiris,
Yes.
Joseph Jones,
Yes.
Mike LaFredo,
Yes,
Mike Jones,
Yes.
and Teresa Harms.
Yes.
Next item is consideration of pay request 10-2020 on the street improvement project, Allison and 69th, in the amount of $3,420.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion?
What is this $3,000 for exactly? I mean, I tried looking through. Is it just that the change orders and then kind of how this all worked out that we owe the $3,400?
No, it was from, they put erosion control in, like inlet protections at the end when they finished up in December and January. They were fine holding it till closer to construction in case something else came up.
Thank you, Justin.
Any
Hey,
further
Dennis.
discussion?
Dennis, while we're talking about Allison, has there been any revision of the ordinance on the sump pump?
It's coming up, Mike.
It's coming up. Okay. Very good. Thanks, Dave.
There's no further discussion on this. Roll call.
We already did we already do this? I'm sorry, Susan Skiris,
Yes.
Joseph Jones,
Yes.
Mike LaFredo,
Yes, sir.
Mike Jones,
Yes.
and Teresa Harms.
Yes.
Apologies.
Next item is consideration of pay request number 8 on University Avenue project in the amount of $468,680.94. Motion to approve.
So
So
moved.
moved.
We got 2 moves.
Second.
Second.
Okay, we got 2 seconds. Thank you, folks. Discussion? Okay. Roll call.
Susan Skiris,
Yes.
Joseph Jones,
Yes.
Mike LaFredo,
Yes.
Mike Jones,
Yes.
and Teresa Harms.
Yes.
Next item is consideration of resolution 2021-18, setting a time and place for a public hearing on ordinance 2103, which amends chapter 174.08 of the Code of Ordinances relating to parking for personal and recreational vehicles. That time and place will be May 3rd. Motion.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
So the background on this, as you all recall, we went through this not too long ago. But I was focused on the definition of surfaces is what drove that discussion. And I did not go through that entire code section as a result. And during that revision, when we talked about the length and width discussion of the trailer, we inadvertently made under 16 foot have a length and width requirement, and we struck the portion about being connected or contiguous to getting to a roadway or other public means. Then that eliminated the over 16 foot section and created a conflict between the under and the over. And so when this came up to a resident question by Susan, I went back and looked at that ordinance and then found some other stuff that needed to be cleaned up in it as well. So I just went through the whole thing, cleaned it all up, and this will fix that problem going forward.
Thanks, Chad. Any
Thank
further
you, Chad,
discussion?
thank you, Chad, for going through and dealing with all my questions. And I appreciate you taking the time to look through it better and explain it to me as well.
Do the whole section from now on instead of just parts of words.
Any further discussion? Roll call.
Susan Skiris,
Yes.
Joseph Jones,
Yes.
Mike LaFredo,
Yes.
Mike Jones,
Yes.
Teresa Harms.
Yes.
Next item is consideration of resolution 2021-19, setting a time and place which will be May 3rd for a public hearing on ordinance 21-04, amending changes to 97.01 of the Code of Ordinances relating to stormwater. Mike, I think this is your question. Motion.
Move to approve.
Okay.
We get a second?
Yes.
Second.
Okay. Discussion?
Can I just have some clarity? I just want to make sure that I understand personally. On page 84, the last part, it says, it talks about special tax against the property abutting or adjacent thereto. So that wouldn't include any other property other than the property that is having the storm issue, the sump pump issue or whatever issue. Is that correct? It wouldn't
Yes.
go to any other house or anything.
Right.
Does
Any
it,
further discussion? Mike?
no, does that answer, Susan, for you?
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
Roll call.
Susan Skiris,
Yes,
Joseph Jones,
Yes.
Mike LaFredo,
Yes.
Mike Jones,
Yes.
and Teresa Harms.
Yes.
Next item are reports. Therese?
Mr. Mayor, there's item number H, or letter H.
Oh, I forgot that one. Thanks, Travis.
That one's mine.
I know. Consideration of Laserfish Cloud Electronic Documentation Management Project in the amount of $8,500. Travis, would you like to address that, or Dennis, one of the two of you?
Yeah, this is something that Rochelle and myself have been looking at. I've been looking at a little bit longer, but we're looking to get all of our documents in a searchable database and no longer have paper records that are stored like in the public workshop. We have a vault down in the police department that has stuff scattered in it, and we have multiple file cabinets. So what we're trying to do is try and get everything modernized and allow for decent storage, retrieval, and management of our documents. And when I say management, certain documents you only have to keep for a certain amount of time. So for instance, like invoices, I believe it's 7 years. So we would upload our invoices, we would put a termination date of 7 years on those documents. And then at 7 years, we would get a report of all the documents that were expunged from the system. And then that would clear up space then for more documents to come on board. So what this would give us would be 10 terabytes of cloud storage of all of our documents. And like I said, especially for public records requests, sometimes I get questions like, I had this permit taken out, back in 2015 or earlier than that. And really the system will allow us, once we get everything digitized, to be able to pull those records and email them out to people. There's even allowing of public databases. One thing, like if you wanted to search our minutes right now on our website to see if there was an issue that was ever brought up on our website, it's not or on council action forms or anything of that nature. With this, you can literally just search an inquiry, and you can say flooding, and it'll pull up every minutes and every time the council has spoke about flooding and related documents. So it's a really powerful tool to have. And we were looking at that first proposal that was much more money. And then General Code came in and offered the same product, but at a much lower implementation cost. And I've had experience working with General Code. I recodified our village code back when I worked in Wisconsin with them. So I'm comfortable with them. And Rochelle and I interviewed them, and they came across as being really knowing what we needed. And like I mentioned in the memo, both Clive and Waukee uses them, and they come highly recommended. So any questions for me?
Is that an annual fund or an annual amount?
Yeah, the annual fee is the $4,000, the license fee. And that includes the support as well.
Okay, so the 8,500 is the implementation.
Implementation in first year.
Thank you. Any other questions? Mike, you had one?
I have one. Travis, there's a lot of numbers in here that I see, and one has a total amount on of 19,000. What is that for?
That's one we're not going to take. The difference between the two proposals was that the one from General Code that we're recommending has a pre-built file structure system. And with OPG, it was like they needed to rebuild everything from scratch for us. And General Code has already worked with cities, as has OPG. So we were kind of scratching our head as to why we would need to have that per hour project charge that they were proposing. So once we interviewed with General Code, and like I said, that pre-built file structure is pretty much what every city needs. And so we discussed some other little things we wanted, and they were able to come in at a much lower implementation cost for us.
But it's 4,000 annually for what?
That is, so the Laserfiche license, it's a proprietary software or archival system. That's 3,000. The other 1,000 covers the support. So if we have a question or we need training on something, then we would call them and they would help us out with any questions or concerns that we would have with processes.
Do they charge by the hour for that consulting?
For the project itself now, that is built in.
No, I'm talking about thereafter.
Afterwards, no. Only if we would have like some sort of special workflow process that we wanted that would cause us to have them do programming for, but we don't see a need for that right now. So
In addition to this 8,500, we would expect 4,000 per year, right?
per year, yeah, similar to all our other software.
Yeah. Did I read in there somewhere plus inflation?
I believe they had, I think that was for the 3 years of the contract. There might be a bit of a rider in there for years.
I think there is, yeah. That's why I think I would hope before we agree to anything that legal takes a good look at it for us. Because I noticed that something about inflation on the annual cost each year. So I think there are legal minds that should look at any contract. Because I'm not the most technological advanced person, so that part of it I can't be much help with, but I can when I look at numbers. And so I would like somebody else to look at those and make sure we understand what they mean going forward.
Travis, I have 2 questions. It says for year 2 and 3 for the described cloud solution, it's $5,000. Is it 5,000 or 4,000 or? And I do see the second and third year are guaranteed at this price, which shows 5,000. But then this estimate is subject to change based upon the then current support prices for that year, starting year 4.
I believe that's when we would come back to them, and then if that was going to be something that'd be an issue, then we would similar to all of our other contracts, we have the similar with our auditor contracts and our current software contracts. So and that's something I can definitely look into and get back to you on.
But it is 4,000, not the 5,000.
Yes, 4,000.
Okay. And then what happens, because I see that there's overages in the storage. How close would be to overages? Like, is this something that you can have 1,010,000 files in on this and then we'll worry about that in a few years? Or are we looking, because it's, overages said $30 per 10 gigabyte annually. So just kind of wondering what our thoughts are on the overages.
Yeah, thanks for asking that. That was the same question that we had, because when you look at that first proposal, it says so many gigabytes per user, but so it is kind of confusing. It seems like we're not getting a lot of storage because we have so few users, but it's actually 100 users at that same amount. So we actually have 10 terabytes, which is a lot more than we would need. So we had that question for the implementator as well, because it seemed like, well, if there's only going to be 5 of us as certified users, does that mean we only get 5 slices of that bigger pie? And he goes, no, you get 100 slices of the total 10 terabyte pie. So that was clarified for us.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions?
Yeah, I don't have I think this sounds fine and good. I'm just curious. I mean, we look at the pricing options. It says 5,000. It says 5,000 pretty much everywhere. So
maybe I missed that renewal. I apologize. Let me look.
okay. So I just want to make sure.
Yeah, I just had that was in my head. So just 1 second. Yeah, I apologize. It's a 3-year with software and support of 5,000. Yeah, that is correct. I'm sorry, I misspoke on the 4,000.
And so it's 5,000 per
Yeah.
year.
Out of the 5,000, 3,000 of that is the Laserfish portion of the license.
So after the initial 8,500, it is 5,000 for the next 2 years.
Yeah, so basically what they're doing is they're charging us 5,000 for the first year and the renewals. And then the project implementation, they're charging us 3,500 for to make 8,500.
So that takes care of the full charge for 1 year?
Yeah, it'll be for 1 year and there will not be an inflationary factor. So that's for a 3-year contract.
Okay, but it's
I
five,
apologize, I didn't get that.
okay, but it's 5,000 as Mike pointed out.
Yeah, that's 5,000 per year for the next 3 years, 3,500 for the first year for implementation.
And you looked at other sources that can provide this?
Yeah, we looked at, like I said, the OPG was the one we worked with initially. And OPG, I also went to one of their presentations over in Clive. And they were very impressive, but it just came down to the implementation. They were only the software and support fee for them was 3,000. Then their implementation fees were much higher. Their scope of work fees were much higher. And we went back to them a couple times to try to get that narrowed down to what we'd actually need, and we got it narrowed down. But still, with them, we were looking at 20,000. And so we ended up having an interview with General Code, and we asked a bunch of questions, and it all came down to this pre-built file structure. And we told them a few other things that we needed, and they said, yeah, we should be able to do that for 3,500. So that's what it comes down to. So like I said, we're confident with General Code.
And so you've got references on this particular company that you're recommending?
Yeah, like mainly references on the Laserfish. It's the primary. It has government grade security. It's one of the only document management systems that the U.S. government, in particular Department of Defense, uses for security purposes. And then it's backed up on several different servers and in a secure cloud environment.
Travis, I appreciate your work with Rochelle and trying to make sure that the city gets the best, basically the best price for what we're looking for. Are we doing this because we're trying to move forward and stop basically having the paper copies of everything and moving this online to make it more efficient for staff members to search things? Is this kind of, so in the next 10 years, everything will be online and we aren't trying to play catch up then with 10 years worth of paper files?
Yeah, the paper is the number one burden, but the number two burden is that unfortunately, we don't have a lot of institutional knowledge in City Hall because of the turnover. And now I've been there for 3 years, and Rochelle is we're finally getting it to a place where we feel as though, okay, now this is the next big project we have to tackle, is getting all of our agreements, all of our, all those important files need to be accessible. And so when someone else comes in the door, if that's, 5 years from now or whenever that is, that they can just sit down and like, okay, great, they have everything on Laserfish and we can find the documents. Right now, we still have a difficult time going back and finding anything that we haven't touched personally. We do have, I'm sorry, we do have some of our documents on a local network that the police department has, and we can do some searching there. But sometimes it's just handpicking into, we go back to the minutes, and then we go from the minutes and we pull one of the electronic agenda files to go back and find something that was in a packet. Whereas this, we can upload all those packets into Laserfish and it's all searchable. So if we want to know when was the last time we studied compensation, all those compensation studies would then come right up to the top. And then we would have those. So it is a powerful tool for information gathering and preservation of institutional knowledge.
Travis, are personnel files on this system?
They will be moved over to this system, yes.
Okay, now who's going to have access to those?
Well, it'd be similar. There's permissions set up in the program. So basically the permissions would be set up just the same. It's just there won't be a physical. Like right now, the access to personnel records is myself and the city administrator. And it would be the same under Laserfish.
And Travis, would any other department use this, such as Public Works, the police department, fire department, Dennis, I mean, to put their information in, their papers into this, or is this just the city hall?
For right now, just City Hall, but I would assume Public Works would be putting items in. I don't want to speak for Chad, but they use a different vendor for this right now. And so maybe down the road, it could be something that they could look into expanding into this system, or if they want to keep their existing system. But it's very similar to what the police department uses. It's just a different vendor, different product, or different provider.
Chad, what do you use?
We use a platform called Radix is what we scan all of our case files into and maintain them. And the reason that when this discussion first came up, one of the reasons that we chose to stick with Radix and not jump in on this right away is because of the CJIS, the Criminal Justice Information System requirements. We fit those requirements with Radix, and I don't know enough about this other one to know whether we would fit that or not. Plus, all of our case files are already uploaded into Radix.
And you're satisfied with it?
Yeah, it works fine for us.
Okay, very good.
Further discussion? Roll call.
Susan Skiris,
Yes.
Joseph Jones,
Yes.
Mike LaFredo,
Yes,
Mike Jones,
Yes.
and Teresa Harms.
Yes.
Next item is council reports. Therese, have you got anything to report on?
We had MAC last Tuesday. And so just the things that we covered at the Metro Advisory Committee were, we got a legislative update. So just kind of a what's going on in session and bills that are pertinent to us. There's a variety of different pieces of legislation that are moving forward, but some that are dying. So hopefully in the next couple of weeks, we'll see what the shakeout of all of that is. We got a Polk County vaccine update from Supervisor Connolly, who provided that update to us on just kind of where we are in general. And then we received an update from the MPO on the Economic Development District designation project, which they're working on. So happy to provide any, if anybody has any questions, the mayor or I can probably provide some updates on that. That's all I have.
Thank you. Mike Jones,
Nothing from me.
Mike LaFredo,
no, you've heard the Public Works summary already.
thank you. Joseph,
No, nothing for me today.
Susan,
First, I just want to thank the Windsor Heights Firefighters Association for bringing the Easter Bunny around Windsor Heights. I know that it was a big hit with not only the kids, but also people of all ages appreciated it and liked it. So definitely appreciate the association for setting that up and going around the city on a Saturday.
I enjoyed it.
Let's see, there is a Metro Waste Authority meeting on Wednesday. I saw that I received an email with the agenda right before council meeting here, so I haven't been able to read through and see what is on the agenda. I just am questioning the 73rd and University intersection. I know that I've been voicing my concerns about the intersection since November 19th of 2020. And then at the last city council meeting, I was told that work would be started that week. So that would be the first week in April. Has there been any work done? I see that there are some maybe freshly painted white arrows on the road near the intersection, but it isn't any less confusing. I'm just wondering, was the painting of the arrows on the road the fix for the mile-long confusing turn lane, or have we just not been able to get people out there yet? And that's it.
Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead, Dennis.
Susan, with any of these kind of work, the weather is the telling factor. And because we've had freezing temperatures recently, the paint wouldn't adhere. What the contractor did volunteer to do at no cost was to run out there and put some temporary arrows down on the concrete. And once the weather improves, they'll come out and they'll do the permanent fix.
Okay. I guess I didn't realize that we had a whole bunch of freezing temperatures here. I mean, I know sometimes the nights got down to 40 something ish, but to be honest, the arrows really did absolutely nothing. And today I almost witnessed 2 accidents as I went through that intersection. So I think that something really needs to be done about this. I've heard several complaints from residents about this. And again, I've been, talking about this since November. So appreciate the update.
Dennis, have you got anything you'd like to address?
Not this evening. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
We've got public safety, public works, and communication reports are in the packet. I think you can all look at those, and any questions go from there. Travis, do we have to adjourn before we go to closed session? Because we're out of order on this, I think.
No, you're going to convene into closed,
Okay.
convene into open, and then you have potential council action after. Then
Okay. Motion to go into closed session.
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Susan Skiris,
Yes.
Joseph Jones,
Yes.
Mike LaFredo,
Yes.
Mike Jones,
Yes.
and Teresa Harms.
Yes.
Okay, Travis, you want to close anybody out that isn't supposed to be here?
Yep, just 1 second here.
Cap.
Do you need to change the thing?
Pardon?
Do we need to change the recording or anything that we're back in open session?
Yeah.
And now that we're in open, I do have the recording back on. Thank you very much, Teresa.
Sorry.
Is it approving the motion, or I thought we were, or approving the settlement, or I thought it was a non-objection?
No, Deb was saying that different cities do it differently. I had suggested, since historically the city actually approves, that the city, and the motion, the way it's written right now, is for the city to approve. But if you would like, Mike Jones, you certainly could make the motion to not object, and then it's up to whatever works for you guys.
I think that would be, Matt, even for the rest of us, or for me at least, that's more comfortable for me, that we're not objecting, or that I'm not objecting.
So are you making that motion, Councilmember LaFredo?
Yes.
Excellent.
Second.
Okay, so what was the end of the motion now, Travis?
I still have it as now motion by LaFredo to approve settlement agreement between Elizabeth Hansen and ICAP, seconded by Harms.
And the way it should be, Travis, is to not object, not approve, but not object to the settlement agreement.
Okay, so I revised the resolution to state motion by LaFredo to not object to the settlement agreement between Elizabeth Hansen and ICAP. Seconded by Harms.
Any discussion on that? Is that okay with everybody then? If so, we'll do a roll call. Go ahead and roll call, Travis.
Okay, Mike LaFredo,
Yes.
Teresa Harms,
Yes.
Mike Jones,
Yes.
Joseph Jones,
Yes.
and Susan Skiris.
Yes.
Thank you. Matt, Deb, do we have to do anything else now or just adjourn for the evening?
All
That's
I've
every-
got.
Sorry, Deb. That's everything we need. So if you guys want to make a motion to adjourn, unless you all want to hang out for a little while.
So moved.
Adjourn.
So moved, Dave.
Thank-
Second,
Roll call.
Okay, Susan Skiris,
yes.
Joseph Jones,
Yes.
Mike LaFredo,
Yes.
Mike Jones,
Yes.
and Teresa Harms.
Yes.
All right, have a good night, everybody.
Thank you, folks. Good night.
Thank you.